Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Mia Kolmodin. Welcome to this morning breakfast webinar. I'm going to share about the different development paradigms. And we have already been getting started in the sofas here with sharing what's going on in organizations. We'll see what will come up during the presentation, but maybe more of that, what's happening in reality, in your reality. So we're recording this and we're going to send out a link afterwards, also to the people that couldn't join, but also for you, of course. And you will also get the slides if you want that. Perfect. Vi ser om den där funkar också. And Pernilla is with us in the chat. So when you have questions, you can just write them there. And she will help me, I hope, to gather them at the end. So we'll have questions at the end. Här vägrar jag funka. So we're going to start with what success actually looks like in your organization. Yeah, that could be funny. So number one here, we have all the requirements in the plan and we can rely on no changes being made. That makes us safe. That's great. Or we deliver on time with high quality software. Or we have all teams allocated 100% to aligned planned work. Or maybe we get early feedback and stop working on what isn't valuable for our customers. So does any of these sound like something that is success in your organization? Maybe not for you, but for the organization. So you can share the number in the chat or hold your fingers up. Now I can't see you guys in the videos, but in the room here, we have a 1, a 2, and a 3, a 2 and a 3 at the same time.
2 and 4, I would say.
2 and 4. Okay. Yeah. 4 is good. Yeah. Maybe. So we'll see. I'm not sure what happened in the chats. Pernilla, did you get any numbers?
Yeah, we have a 2 and we actually have a 4 too. Haha.
Good. So we're going to see what paradigms does this fit to. So the first one, of course, waterfall, where we want to have everything in the plan and then want to execute on the plan, and hopefully we get the results that we're looking for, or at least we get some kind of a delivery, maybe years later. It's really hard to understand if this actually is the right solution, because it's difficult to actually test things and figure things out. It's not based on what's going to happen when you use it. It's based on the analysis. And of course, you release with a big bang, everything has to go. And it could be very costly. And of course, it could come very late, this release. So it's really hard in the era that we are in today to actually succeed doing this type of project management. And number 2 here, working with Scrum teams, smaller teams, figuring things out, which works in a great way where you can actually learn a little bit, you release a little bit, and then you get feedback. But it could be seen as a small feature factory, where maybe we use these teams as just a high-speed factory where we put things in and hopefully get something out. But in theory, they're supposed to be able to figure things out, release by release and sprint by sprint. Maybe no at the beginning and maybe yes later then. And here in 2016 or something, people started to want these scaled agile things, and SAFe become very popular here in Sweden. I'm not sure how it is in the rest of the world, but we have some SAFe organizations here sitting. And this is really a large feature factory where you ask people to deliver features that you've already usually done research and analysis and planning for, and then you put them in the machine and then you get something out. And here you have to have a lot of people allocated, because a lot of times there are so many dependencies. So you could have hundreds of people working to be able to deliver those features many times. And of course, then it is really, really hard to see if we actually hit any targets? Do we get any impact from these features, the things that we do? Because it's tricky, it's too complex. And it's really hard to invite the customer to see the things that we do. Does it actually mean something for the customer? And here, about the same time, or maybe before 2016, a lot of people started to work with more lean UX, lean startup, to figure more maybe strategic things out by actually delivering something, doing prototypes, working customer-centric. And here you are product-led because you focus on the customer and you want to figure out what type of product or service actually helps the customer. And you can build in more feedback loops in your way of working. Otherwise, you won't succeed. So you want to have early validation, maybe not even a release, but prototyping and doing tests in different ways to get feedback on also the strategic parts. So instead of doing just analysis and have an idea and get that through as a feature, you think about the product and maybe more of an ecosystem around the customer. What are the things that our customers actually need, maybe outside of the product? It could be new stuff going on, or within the product. And here we can get a shorter time to market because we can figure things out and we can get releases out that are smaller, but still give value to the customer. And here we need really cross-functional teams. Could be maybe anywhere from the organization that are needed within the team instead of having dependencies. So if we remove dependencies, we're going to have those capabilities within the team. Or it could be teams, of course, that maybe a couple of teams that works together. And well, we're going to look into more this product-led paradigm. What does it mean? Because when you grow that, you might not just have one product team, you might have many. How could that look as an organization? Which then hopefully does not become the machine. So here, a lot easier to actually get success with your product and get customers to actually want your product, not just maybe force them to use it or something, whatever you do otherwise. So it's a lot about modern product management. How do you do this in a good way? And it's really hard sometimes, but you really need to focus on the customer, to be obsessed with who are the customers, what's their needs, how can we help them to succeed and feel successful in what they do? And if you're a bank, for example, maybe you not just lend them money or whatever you do, you actually help them succeed with maybe something else in their lives. Having maybe a good house for your family. That's what you're helping them to do to feel successful. So you have to look at the customer value in everything you do. And you have to say no to a lot of things. We had a discussion outside that what the organization is trying to do is just push all these features into release trains in the big feature factory. And when you start saying no, that's when you can succeed. And that's the job of product management. But a lot of times people in those roles might not have the capabilities. They might not have this feeling and understanding about system thinking, which is needed to be able to get something out. And what you do is just focus on the customer here too. So who are the customers we want to help succeed? What's the business targets we have? What are the things that actually help them? Instead of getting things into our team or our teams that people are asking us to do. So you have to shift there. Yeah, we have a question, so you can take the mic.
Yeah, not a question, but we were actually just talking about where I work, that the right side is where we're at. We have a solution manager saying, spend this many percents on, percentages on certain things.
Yes.
Instead of, PA planning is not about laying a perfect plan. It is about handling dependencies and blockers to what we say yes, but also being comfortable with what we say no to as a collective. So I'm trying to kind of coach us into the left direction, but
exactly.
Easier said than done.
So it could feel counterproductive, but that's when you get flow. And if you don't have flow in your organization, you don't get things out, and you're not going to get any feedback on your product, your idea, your solution, if it's the right one, if you don't have flow. So first you have to have flow, and then you have to say no to more things until you can speed it up and be more have more flow and then understand quicker what works or not. So you have to say no. And it's a really tough job to do that, of course. It could be really hard. And also we have to expand the diamond, we say, where we have to get an overlap over what the strategic parts and operational parts to be tactical. Otherwise, we can't choose, should we do this or should we do that, if we don't understand the strategy. And of course, we need strategy to come from the people working operational as well, because they understand, hopefully, the customer, and they can feed in what are the things maybe that will help us move forward, maybe strategic leaps we need to take, could be technically or could be other things. Because the people working with this stuff usually know if they understand the customer needs and what do we want as a company, where are we heading, what are the things that we actually need to do. So here we need to close the gap so that we're not too far from the strategy and operational work. It doesn't have to be that strategy is hierarchically just managers doing, not at all, but we have to facilitate and work together, have maybe ways of working where we understand and create strategy continuously. And we need to create this overlap with different capabilities and work with what's business and profitable, what's usable and what's feasible. And that has to be done all the time. So if we separate these things and if we separate the people thinking from the people doing, if we separate strategy from operational, that's when we fail. So it always has to be an overlap. And then we have to have overlap with both mandate, capability, ways of working, which is really hard. But those are the types of kind of virtual organizations maybe that you need to create. So we're going to look into what could that look like. And we need to be able to find those opportunities, maybe not have as much of a traditional backlog where we have wishful thinking or things that maybe we thought we needed a long time ago. Instead, keep that space open, because that also occupies your brain and takes time to work with things that maybe we thought we needed way back. We could use an opportunity map with what's the strategic goal that we have as a team or teams of teams or as organizations, and then what are the things we think are helpful for us to reach those things, which might not just be the work in our team, could be more strategic and bigger things where we need to collaborate as well. But we could bring it down to one team as well. We could put a strategic goal on one team to help to take a leap somewhere. And we can give that as a mission for a team over a period of time. And then it's much easier for them to make tactical and smart decisions and understand what's going on. Go out and understand the customer pains around this area that we are responsible for. And then we can use the products to actually build growth loops, which helps to then maybe spread the product in different ways. It could be the business model of it. That could be the ownership of a team to actually look at the business model for our product and maybe the pricing and everything, not just the features. So we can give all of that as ownership to a team, which means, of course, we push down a lot of mandate. Or you could say we actually bring those people in who works with that and put them in a team together with the people who can do the job. So that's an easier way. It doesn't have to be that you give away your mandate. It's just that you should be in one of the teams. Cool. And then we have to create directions, of course, for the organization in a good way. So those missions has to be connected to something. I'm very fond of the North Star, which gives us a direction. If we can't see the North Star, then we're heading somewhere way off, maybe. So different ways of doing this, but don't over process it. If your organization is fond of processes, maybe controlling a little bit, you can have too much of this. So that's why I think I like the North Star, because it's not any processes at all. It's just what are we supposed to be doing as an organization? What's the purpose? And then we can look at step by step, quarterly maybe. What are the leaps we want to take and use that for our OKRs if we want. So give the mission and mandate to the teams because they are supposed to do the job. The job shouldn't be done somewhere else. and then hand it over to the teams to just execute on a plan, because that's when you get waterfall, even though you have teams. That's when you get the factory. So it's always about how can we invite those people who have maybe the strategic responsibility or the mandate to make these decisions. That could be in forums where you meet and make decisions, or closer to the teams, in the teams. Then you're more successful.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
our management and product leg this week are going to meet up on Thursday, and it's only going to be solution managers and product managers, but not the POs for the teams. And I specifically asked, but why don't you include the POs? Because otherwise you're just spoon feeding them information. They're not going to see the bigger picture themselves.
Yeah.
No, but we're going to be too many people now. I'm like, okay, do you want the product in the end or not? Like,
Yeah.
how serious do you take this mission? So it's kind of fun to see this big.
I've seen this with too many people. Sometimes if the people don't fit in their room and they're supposed to do the planning, then maybe something is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the product owners work with the teams. They should probably be there. But maybe something else.
Yeah.
Or you need something else to facilitate this in a way so you can include those who are supposed to be close to, because they're supposed to make the tactical decisions at least, or feed in strategically. So it could be a different process needed, maybe. And when you give a mission to a team, you can think about it as a piece of cake. So you give them one part of a product, but it should be possible for a customer to eat it and be delighted. And if you give that to a team and they have the capabilities to be able to release and maintain that and make those decisions and maybe do the research, design or whatever, then they can actually take a strategic ownership and make tactical decisions. But it needs to be, all the layers in the cake needs to be in the team usually. So if you leave out the bottom or leave out the top then is not going to be useful or usable at all. And if you leave out the bottom, they're going to have dependencies. They maybe create something that isn't working or just mock-ups or whatever and never be able to do a release. So it's the whole cake that's actually the business of it. And you don't want the team to just do half-baked cakes, because no one's going to actually enjoy that cake. So you can think about it as a piece of cake. And you're going to work with the teams to do both the business and here it says customer-centric business and product development. And we put it like that because not all people in organizations think about business development as product development. But when you do product development, it should be business development together. That's what you do when you're a product-led organization. Then you have business development in the teams and develop the product based on the business needs. But you have to do organizational development at the same time. That's why you constantly have to adapt your operational model, the structure your team works in, maybe the teams itself, and how you're configured as an organization. It has to be continuously adapted. And that could be your success metric that actually continuously increase business value. But you do that not only by working with the product itself or the business development, but you do it also with organizational development. And sometimes that gets forgotten. It's really hard to do this. And it becomes maybe harder to do this too. But if you don't do that, this isn't going to happen a lot of times. Because you have to adapt constantly your organization to be able to deliver value. And it is really hard. We don't have those capabilities most of the time. So we have to build them up step by step. And we're doing so many things that are counterproductive for business outcomes. So we have to do organizational development. And it's not a project. It's not implementing a framework. That's where a lot of organizations have went sideways. It has to be constantly a way of working that you have. So who succeeds the best at doing this? Well, those, of course, who does experiment and try things, and those who meet customers, who understands their customers, and share results. And of course, all organizations usually have some kind of an understanding of customers. They might have agencies that look at the customers. They might do like customer journeys or something like that. But this has to happen more or less within the teams with support. But it has to happen by those who actually do the work continuously. It doesn't have to be strategic work then in the teams, but actually understanding what we're working on, who is it for? And if you can work with more data-driven hypothesis, it's very helpful. If you visualize the work that we're about to do as a hypothesis instead of a plan. If we want a feature, what's the hypothesis behind this? Okay, we're supposed to help these guys be able to achieve these things, and we think this feature might be helpful. Because then you turn the ship around and you say, okay, let's see, what's the easiest way we can try things in this hypothesis that are maybe the most risk? Maybe it's a risky thing to build it. Maybe we need to make it smaller. Maybe we can create a prototype. Maybe we can go out and meet with those who we want to help. So just visualizing the hypothesis and do that together with the people who have the need or the people asking you to do things or your team or teams. It's really helpful. Then you can try things out, and there's going to be different things needed maybe to remove those risky things. Here's an example of a validation board where we visualized hypothesis like every second week or so, where there we're at in this is the product development process. So where were we at in the product development process, and what's the hypothesis that we had? What did we do? What's the learning we had? Maybe then we learned something, we created a new hypothesis, and then maybe okay, this seems like we're actually solving this problem for the customer or the business, and then we can do a release. By doing this sharing, we learn a lot more. So we don't want the learnings just to stay in one team or with a smaller group. We want learnings to expand across more people. That's when we can create the learning organization. And this is just a facilitation structure, right? It's super simple. It's just tape on the wall. It's just a stand up every second week. It's just a template where we have these things in the template. Cool. And we remove the blame. We remove everything that's always risky to do experiments. No, it's risky to not do experiments because that's when we're going to fail late. We want to fail faster. So you create this structure, facilitate it, and just help people get started, do the experiments, do the hypothesis, and then you change the culture.
I'm sorry, but how do you work with the culture? Because in quite traditional companies, we have departments doing this in closed rooms. This is their job to knowing our customer and, creating. They never talk to the customers, but I mean, how do you change that culture? Because that is the hardest thing.
Yeah, by doing this, when you change the structures, you will change the behaviors, and the behaviors will change your culture. But then maybe you have fear, you might have different things going on.
Fear, prestige.
So invite them, we need you guys in our teams. Can you come and join us? Can we do this together? Then you will start much earlier in the process because they probably have really great ways of working that help you strategically know what to do. But this is not the strategic part. This is more the tactical part where the teams needs to understand what are we doing and who we're doing it for, and then test different solutions. That's probably not what they're working on. So they probably do the big bets. What are the big leaps we need to do and create maybe bigger programs or projects or whatever. So I don't think you're actually competing with them, but you can probably invite them because they have ways of working, they have an understanding of how to do this. So you can invite them and say, oh, could you guys help us? You guys are so good at this. We're just going to work on the tactical parts here. So you remove the fear and you invite them and say you're important. No, it's not sneaky. It's probably true. I worked as a UX designer. I know I've been a UX manager. And most of the times you want to involve and help people actually operationalize the strategy. And that's what you're doing here. So it's probably helpful for them too. It's the gap. They are, the diamond up there and you're maybe down there. So the overlap is going to happen when you invite them and work together. Good question. And just getting out of the building, just meeting with customers, showing what you're doing, asking questions, whatever. This is if you have customers outside. If you have them indoors within your organization, usually much easier, but could be other things going on, which is, oh, how do we approach them? How can we talk to them without, them thinking we're stupid or whatever? It's really, sometimes if you're not trained in how to do interviews, and so it could feel really, risky and difficult. So you have to maybe then get a little bit of coaching from the people who are used to do it to be able to actually meet your customers. But when you do this, you can't really base your strategic decisions on this. So this is definitely on the more tactical, operational part where you can get more feedback. Here we actually did get more strategic feedback because we showed this as this is called a trigger materials. So one of the ideas that we have in one of the projects we did to release a new sports streaming product on local soccer. Then we wanted to test if people wanted to buy games or if they wanted to support their local soccer team. So we tested out different concepts here to get feedback from maybe like 20 people just to see, does it seem like a good hypothesis or not? And then we could say no to a couple of things and then just focus on some others, which gave us really early feedback, like within 2 weeks of the start of the project, if you say so. So it could be really good doing that too. And of course, those who collaborate, the more you invite those on the other side, the more successful you are going to be. And you can invite them, doesn't have to be just in your team, it could be in these other facilitated settings where you look at things from different perspectives, where you maybe learn from each other, share information or create ideas. So
I actually find it kind of amusing too, because people tend to form their little groups. And we work on this thing, we work on this thing, but if nothing else, for my own amusement's sake, just to force them into the same room and see them being uncomfortable for like 10-15 minutes, but then starting to, we should work more closely because A, B, and C. It's kind of fun to see that mature and just force people. That's also kind of the fun part, how much adult supervision is needed for people to start talking to each other.
And many times people are not used to actually collaborate with people outside of their the sphere. If you're trained as a designer, you're trained as a developer, you've only worked with or been trained with people within the same skill or role or something like that. So it's but when they start to do that and see the value, then that becomes the new norm, and then you've changed the culture. That's the new way to do things. So you have to also help them find the win in that. Why is that good for me? How can we help each other? So the paradigm shifts and system shifts that are needed to be able to succeed, we're going to look into that. So once you start to think about this, it's maybe common sense. If you are looking to do a change in your organization, we talked about, a new reorg is needed, people might think. Then you have to start with the product and the customer. Who are they? Because those are the ones that you should actually organize around. So what are the products you're selling? There we need probably to have teams to work closely to deliver something. Or if we have groups of customers where we don't really yet know what we're going to do, it's the same thing there. And then we can look at what's the architecture landscape needed for the teams to work in a good way, because architecture will be formed around how we communicate, and they are going to communicate closely. If we don't change the architecture based on that, which is probably going to happen step by step, it's not something you do up front, but when we start to communicate more closely within those who need to be collaborating, then the architecture will change based on that. But we can have a little bit more strategic thinking around what do we need here, not to have dependencies and to have more autonomous teams, of course. And then we can look at ways of working, what's helpful for these teams or teams of teams. It might not be the same. So implementing one model usually doesn't help everyone, because the closer you are to the customer, like front-end wise, the faster you're going to be able to work and the faster feedback loops you will have. which might not be the same for everyone in the organization. So, and if you're hardware oriented, much slower, of course, your feedback cycles, but you can still probably do prototypes. You can probably merge your software with your hardware and get feedback much faster. So you can do probably parallel work. Otherwise, parallel work is not so good. But hardware, software to the same customer at the same time, where you integrate, you test things, you can maybe do more or less a little bit of prototyping. That will make you smarter and faster. So that's the way of working then. That will be different for different organizations and different teams. And then you look at how do we organize and manage based on this. So it's not one size or one model, one framework that's going to fit for everyone if you want to succeed being product-led, delivering faster and better the right things to your customers. So this is a model we've used, and we always start with who you're delivering to, what are the products, what are the customers. And then we need to shift the responsibilities, of course, in the organization. So if we have a more traditional setup, maybe still do waterfall ways of working, we have a lot of handoffs, we have different types of work being done in different places. If you just put these guys in a release train, they're probably still going to do their work and then hand off to the next team, if this would be teams. So they're just going to still do waterfall ways of working. Here we get a little bit of a agile with a release silo. We can do agile within build and test, but there's still someone doing design and coming up with the concepts and doing research and all of that. And here we have agile being able to release, which is usually good because then we understand if the things we do break other things. That's great. It's otherwise quite risky. And we can start being more like having a feedback loop in between here. And maybe we can pull the designers in. We have designers in our teams, so we can then go out and do goobing. If we have this in our teams, it makes sense to go out and see the customer to see if we can get feedback on our ideas, because that's usually what you get. If you don't have design in your teams, the teams don't get value from goobing. Then it's just, okay, we're going to get a design anyhow, which has been done way before, or maybe on a specification that was already done by someone else. And it's not going to meet the customers and create the right interfaces or solutions for our customers. And here we have DevOps also in the teams. So the teams can actually continuously release and understand if the quality is good and take responsibility for maintenance and everything. And down here we have the feature factory. We might have all of these things in our release train or so, but we still don't make decisions on which opportunity to pursue. So the strategic part is still outside of the teams. It's already decided. Who knows for how long before? Could be those business cases lingering in the line there for 2 or 3 years before we actually get it. And down here we have product teams where we can be more product-led, because then we can have the opportunity backlog as well. We can get feedback on the ideas that we have strategically. We could say no to that one, rather do this one early on in the process. This is where we can get really working with more feedback loops within the product, using the product as a growth mechanism, and also take responsibility for deliveries and the quality of what we do. So down here you can be more product-led, but it's usually a journey, and you have to start with getting flow. So if you get DevOps going, it's easier to get flow. If the teams can't release, it's going to be really hard, and then you can start working more with discovery with your teams. But it's usually a journey to get there. But you need to understand these are the steps usually. These are the ambitions. This is what we need to do.
Kind of in our teams, I kind of lack the discovery part, because usually once you kind of decided to work on a feature, there's no like stage at where you ask, do we continue working with this, or was this a bad idea? So they just, head in first into everything they decide, and they kind of adopt a what's the word? Sunk cost kind of. Oh, we already started doing this, so why not, finish it, even though it might not be exactly what's needed. So just those kind of maturity stages is something I like in our teams, or a way of working on both on team level, but also on a higher level to say, okay, now we tried this, didn't work, let's move on. And the transparency to kind of say, oh, we did something wrong, and that is okay.
Exactly. So if you would turn it around and just say, do the hypothesis on this feature, and then we can test and see if it's the right thing before we build it.
Exactly.
And that's usually very helpful. And a lot of times it could be how do we set up the incitament, how we are rewarded, incentives, exactly. So it could be things going on behind the curtains that you don't really see. Why do I push my feature? Because I'm rewarded, maybe. And then it's going to be really tricky to get those guys to toss them away. But then you are a true feature factory because you push things in and then it's all about delivering those things. And most of the times we need to have different types of teams in the organization. You can say all of these are product teams if they can make decision on the opportunity and take responsibility for how do we meet our North Star. So we could have customer journey teams, product offering teams, maybe platform teams, and service teams that help other teams to actually get those capabilities needed. So if we have a DevOps team, they're supposed to build that capability within the organization. When all teams are DevOps teams, usually they might work with just continuously making sure that everything works, or creating awareness around things and strategy and so. And then we have cross-functional, it should say leadership teams there. I'm not sure why I get the wrong picture here, but on the right side, cross-functional leadership teams, where we have different areas of responsibility working together, leading the organization. Because if you get cross-functional teams going, then management is going to be spread out and not knowing what to do. They need to lead parts of the organization, of course, and help teams to succeed together. And then we have component teams, and component teams are the only teams who are not product teams. They usually need to get someone to tell them what to do within their component. And this is usually what we see in most organizations. They might think they have agile organizations and could become product-led. No, they're just component teams. And then they need a backlog with whatever features or whatever things that we need to do in our teams. Then you might not feel the value to bring them in. They might be more administrative, not really doing the product work, more administrating the backlog. And this is usually due to not that they are not capable people. So it's more that they have this component team set up. And what you get then is the product owner needs to go to different teams or the product manager, tell them I need a little bit of the green, a little bit of the red, a little bit of blah, blah, blah to get my feature out. So a lot of this sync meetings going on in the customer, we don't know. It doesn't usually feel like a good experience if different teams have worked on this. And it's really hard here to see, is it a good overall user experience? Because no one can really take responsibility for this. If you have the more UX people or research people sitting, they don't own the user experience. It's the people doing the work, but they can't take this ownership. So then you release something and then it's like, I don't understand. It's different language and different parts of the app or, different digital platforms or the analog. They're all saying different things and working in different ways, which is really then cumbersome for the customer. And a lot of times you get a lot of roles for coordination between teams and integration and release, project management. And this is due to having component teams. And then it's really, really hard to work agile and get early feedback and being successful with product development. So this is usually the key thing that organizations need to understand, move away from component teams and create a different type of teams with different different missions. And it doesn't have to take forever to do that, but you need to create that awareness.
This is so fun because this is our go-to solution. we need a coordinator.
Yes.
Or maybe we need a sort of a project manager to, and oh, this is our really go-to solution. We have so many of these roles.
Yeah. And and it's really funny because most organizations do. It is the go-to solution. Oh, someone needs to take care of all the coordination here. But why? This is a mission that one team could do in 2 weeks. Why are we doing all this over processing? Because that's what it is. And if you have a, you know, something that needs to happen on one page on the website, whether it's a web form and then it, you know, some database stuff. Oh, it's with 10 teams. It has to be a feature. It has to be blah, blah, blah. An epic, it has to go through the process. 6 months later, still nothing. But if I gave it to a team that had those capabilities, it would take them 2 days. So it's not even, you know, how can this be the thinking that it should be like this?
I think, like from personal experience, I kind of feel like it, from management point of view, that it having clear interfaces is so simple. And especially me coming from Scania, you know, the modular system and everything, it's so simple. Just that's their responsibility and that's their responsibility. And if they need help, they will tell us. Yada yada. Thinking in these kind of more abstract aspects, I think it's like for thinking what infinity is or how big the universe is. People's minds explode. They don't realize how, you know, this takes effort, but if you want to succeed, you need to think about it.
Yeah.
You cannot just pawn them off to a transformation office or whatever to think.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it's really hard, but it's all about thinking. What are the things we want to get out from the organization? What's the business and customer value? If that value has to go through different system, different processes, touch all teams, have lots of people coordinating, then it's not the right system for us. But it is really hard to get your mind to. So one of the key things is to have cross-functional leadership teams where you have different areas taking responsibility together, working together, not just reporting, not just doing their stuff with their guys, but actually take responsibility over the system, the strategy, how do we support our teams to move in the right direction, maybe the same direction if that's what we need. Make maybe decisions easier to make, faster, visualize things, see what's going on together. So that should not be a transformation office. It should not be the LACE doing these things. It should be the leadership team. But here in the leadership team, we have process, which is agile coaching, at least capabilities. How do we do this thing? Overlap the diamond, get things going together, make us better all the time. And actually working together, because a lot of times if we, many times we've helped organization create these cross-functional leadership teams, but just as cross-functional teams, collaboration doesn't happen because they don't have a shared goal. They need a shared goal. They need to need each other. And that goal should be what's the organization, the purpose of their part of the organization. That's their goal. They shouldn't have separate goals. So otherwise there's no meaning for them to actually collaborate. And visualize not just the product, not just market, not just what's going on, not just the team's health or whatever hinders, but all of this. Because if we have a cross-functional leadership team, we need all of this. We need to see all of this together, and that's when we can be smarter together. Remove hinders, make us faster, get things going, make sure our teams can maybe work more efficiently, maybe together or separately within their team or whatever is going on. So we can actually see how the product is doing, how the market is doing, and take the responsibility together. And this is usually far away in most organizations. It looks so easy to just visualize what's going on. But if you just turn it around and just say, how can we get this visualization up? Who owns this data? Can we just create a room, a space where you can visualize things and invite people. Then they will see things together and start behaving differently. So you don't have to ask them for permission. You don't have to have a decision. This is what we need to do. Create a space somewhere. I've just used the wall outside the restrooms. Look at this. Everyone sees it every day. Amazing. It's not secret stuff. It's just that it's everywhere scattered in the organization. Oh, then you start to gather the managers or the product owners how can we collaborate? How can we make better decisions? Do you have anything that's not on the wall that should be here? Yeah, we do. So you just create the structure and start to get things up, and things are really going to happen. Sometimes you get a little bit, slapped. How can you do this? But if you talk to people, then it's like, okay, maybe it's a good idea.
It's so interesting because this is kind of where because I've been RT for a while now, and I've tried to coach our product leg to, can you visualize so that teams can look at something together? Like you cannot you cannot make a vision in Jira. Jira is just a tool for the teams to plan their work.
Yeah.
You cannot plan sufficiently over quarters in Jira. I mean, we need some, so I started drawing myself in kind of Miro mural type of tool. And then when you show that to people, they kind of go, aha. And I'm like, here's the link, add your notes.
Huh?
Think about it, add your notes. So I really believe in being able to show. Now we work across continents, so it's a bit difficult.
Maybe it's a Miro board or something.
But I remember the old days when it was just in Södertälje, you have just a big whiteboard with all of sticky notes. I'm like, we managed to create trucks before Jira as well. So what stops us now?
Yeah, exactly. So Jira is just a bug handling tool or something.
Yeah.
It's not a product management tool.
Exactly.
I push that really hard. So product management needs to be done differently.
Exactly. Yes.
But the teams can maybe manage some of the work.
Yes.
But it's not for product management at all. Yeah, this is maybe the data that could be in one of these boards, and you could just start wherever you're at. So if you have a release train, maybe you have several release trains with dependencies, create one for all of it then. Where does the kind of the dependencies end? That's where you need to visualize. And it might be like upper management level. Just do it. And just visualize and share, okay, this one is empty now. How can we invite the teams? This one, we don't have any data. Who owns that? Come here. Give us something so we can meet up every second week or twice a week or wherever is needed. Probably different people can come and put data here once they might have that meeting. So if this would be the room, we have a meeting room here, people might book their meetings here and visualize data and look at things. So people can probably populate it just as you share, this is where we could have stuff. So a lot of shifts also needs to happen within finance, but this might not be where you start, but you need to be aware maybe that we need to move away from the fixed business cases that we talked about and more output-based goals. Rigid budgets that doesn't help us or doesn't maybe allow us to change the plan. Maybe a little bit too much of the OPEX, CAPEX connected to different project phases, because if that's happening, then you can't change your way of working with deliveries. You have to stick to the phases. Or on maybe the thinking that IT is always a cost. Usually that's, really enabling the business. It's not. I mean, cords and screens might be a cost. And this gives you the high admin overhead where we are gaming the budgets just to succeed to do our work. And a lot of financial reporting, it's hard to feel in control. So we might ask for a lot, not we, but the finance department or someone ask for a lot of reporting, which many times people don't even look at. So I know a guy who's a CFO, he said, well, if someone asks me for a report over and over again every week or every month, I start sending them the same report until they tell me it's the wrong one. It might not never happen. So you could also here, you might need to game the system, then it's not valuable. And we need to move towards more dynamic strategy where we base it on reality. That's why we want to see what's going on, because that's reality. We should change our tactics, our strategy, and have goals that are more outcome-based, where we have impact. We look for what is supposed to happen when we do this. That's when we know we can change the solution based on that. And budgets mostly based on fixed teams costs, where we can have incremental financing on what they do. So we separate the cost for the teams and what we're doing. That's when we can have more dynamic planning and shift the solution. And we can have OpEx and CapEx delivered continuously by the product teams instead of having phases within a project management tool. And tech and product will work together. And of course, then we get OpEx, CapEx continuously, if that's important for us. So we need to, a lot of times, work with finance department to shift towards the right side, to be able to be more dynamic. But we can start by doing it and start by maybe gaming a couple of things. But if we can get them to join and to see and understand, we don't get control by having all the reporting, or we don't get control by doing the budgets this way. We get control by delivering something that actually works for our customers, because that's when we make money. And we don't want to just control the costs. We want to control the outcome. That's what modern organizations are about. And we can't take control of that if we want to control everything in detail, because that's when we can't adapt to reality. So just trying to get them on board and try to do experiments maybe, where we do these things in maybe a smaller part of the organization and see, do we succeed? Yeah, look at this, we got control. We know how much it costs to have these people, and we're okay with having not details on what they're going to do the next 6 months. Okay, fine. So if you think about this, what are the maybe core business challenges your organization wants to solve, and kind of connect this to a delivery, something, an outcome for your organization. That's probably where you should organize around. So it could be a strategic leap where you can pull people together to work more closely. Or it could be something that you have continuously running, a product or something, or a service where people need to organize around and bring the people in who actually are needed, with maybe the support structure, support teams or so. But you need to think about this to be able to actually get more value from your organization. Maybe create virtual organization across different parts of the organization. Could be a new release train if you want to use the same language. You don't have to toss everything away, but then at least they can release and take responsibility and make a change within the business value, more outcome oriented. So when we are successful, we could see as a lot of times delivery time cut by half or a lot more sometimes, of course. And we could, when we do this, we will continuously innovate organizational-wise, product-wise, management-wise. So we get an organization that are cutting edge, that actually perform better than other organizations that aren't doing this. And business outcomes, of course, because that's what we want to measure. Are we successful delivering business outcomes? Otherwise, we have to improve, right? And a lot of times you feel happier, more engaged to be able to see you can deliver some things. So instead of feeling, oh, well, the past 2 years, nothing really, got through to the customers. That's not, a fun thing to think about. But actually supporting your customers usually is much more fun. And if you do this systemic changes as well in your organization, you get more long-lasting change, and you can change the behaviors, you can change the culture. If you change the culture, it's going to stick better. So it has to do a lot with that, of course. And it could be, so don't think that you should only change maybe the things that you have responsibility for. You can start there, but you can also work together with others. You can invite others, and you can probably influence people outside in the system that are impacting your structure. Then probably you need to change governance or other things that are out of your control right now. And that's the problem in most organizations. It's out of control of almost anyone. So we can't really influence how things are working, but we have to start to do that by visualizing, inviting, maybe informing, supporting others to do things in a different way. So a lot of times when we work with our customers, we do this organizational changes, but we also look at how can we succeed helping business become better with shorter product market fit, which then becomes cheaper. So if that's a KPI you have, that's good. How can we maybe cut that cost a lot? Maybe work with everything that's online and close to the customer, which is easy to get faster feedback loops. You can also create faster results. And this long time to market will be cut. And the ROI, if you are measuring that and look at those things that you do with innovation and maybe change initiatives, you will increase the ROI on those things if you do things in this way. So that was what I had. Do we have any reflections from the people online? Pernilla, I'm gonna see.
Yes,
Get
we
you
have
back.
yeah, Stefan, you had some very interesting reflections regarding key results. Do you want to share with everyone?
Yeah, sure. Well, you're talking about a lot about like culture, and my belief is that a good OKR, like objective, how do you describe success, and how you put those key results, and those key results are always like a change in the behavior from a customer or a user. So that's what you want to change, and a lot of times you forget to see what happened with what you delivered, and you don't work with the learning process. So if I was thinking about that when you show this board, like the insights board. So if you really show those, because you're taking a lot of cost to deliver something, and then they want to go. A lot of times, management want to go to like delivering the next stuff, because they get promoted by delivering a lot of stuff, like output rather than outcome. But outcome, everybody in this room, I think, understands that it's the outcome that's important. And then you have to understand why didn't this bet work? So you have to understand, I think, if it's like wasn't this a need for the customer that we solved, or was it maybe the usability of the stuff? Like, didn't they find it? Didn't they understand it, or couldn't they execute, or like buy it, or do something, or couldn't they use it? So you have to narrow it down, I think, and frame the problem, why the feature didn't work. And I think a lot of times you don't do that, because what I've seen, if you do that, I mean, maybe it took like 100% of cost, you think, but if you just take 5% more, maybe you can get like 50% more outcomes. So the ratio ROE is like extreme if you actually go and do those loops, even if the release. That's my belief, and I've seen it. And if you have teams that are like really focused on measuring and learning, they get way better than hypotheses. So I always had my teams, like, they always made bet before. Everybody had to guess, not just management, like, we want to have this out of what we release, that like everybody can make the guess and why it didn't work. So it really creates the team to understand what the problem is, how we can do better next time.
Yeah, that's a lot of shorter feedback loops. It's not always you can understand beforehand, but once you are released, maybe not think about it as done, but it's actually getting to the goal that you have. If you want to change the behavior with your customers, if your release didn't do that, then you continuously work on that until you see that you can do that, or understand why it isn't happening, like you said. So it's always about the learning and the ways of working to be able to do that. So yeah, great. Do you have any reflections on that? No. Most organizations don't measure the outcome of what you did. So it's very common. But if you have product teams, they should start to do that, and you need to enable them to do that and set those kind of targets so it's actually possible to change and learn.
No, but I love that measure and learn and get feedback loops. And also I'm trying to reiterate that a lot where I am, that we need to get the feedback, and we need to understand the feedback we get and learn from that. So I love everything you said.
And the closer you can put that to the teams, the more valuable it will become. Otherwise, it becomes a new project or something else. And if they can take responsibility for their work, being, making something work, the better it will be. Otherwise, you separate the thinking from the doing again. So you always think about how can we help them to do this job and learn and not, maybe get those capabilities or whatever is needed.
I'm also trying to teach our management that we need to fail sometimes because we learn by failing. And I'm trying to tell them, if a team comes and tells you, we did this, it didn't work well, but we learned this, that's when you're going to stand up and applaud them and say, this is really, really good because we learned something. And
that's when you are on the fourth step that you can actually say it's not a failure, it's a learning. Exactly. Now we can just skip this thing that we thought would be like the magic thing. We could do this thing that we didn't understand existed before, because that's usually how it is. Might be something totally different that are needed. And a lot of times we've had many questions around this. How do you create something that actually people can collaborate and learn around? And many times it's about slicing the problem. So if the problem is too big, we're going to solve the energy crisis for Sweden before Christmas. It's not going to happen. But if we say, oh, let's figure out something that can help maybe whatever is causing the problem to become smaller in, just this coming month. So we slice the problem and we say maybe just make it local instead of the whole country. Then it's much easier. And that's the teams need to have that also mandate to slice the problem. So we understand, the big goal over there, which might take years. But how can we right now start to see if we're on the right path? And that's all about slicing the problem, which is product management. But it's not always your product owners can do that. So that's maybe when you need to gather a group of people and facilitate.
Yeah, I often feel that so you set kind of these high flying goals, and usually there's less time than there are people able to solve the problem. And everyone kind of concedes that everyone thinks this is impossible. But then that discussion gets stuck kind of in the upper echelons instead of, what do the teams think, and can we start trying something out? Because what you want now versus what you think you will want in a year from now will be two different things. So just start doing something and learn, give the teams the ability to learn from it instead of for a year discussing whether this is possible or not. So we've had that specific case now where we just talk about the problems, but we don't utilize the teams to kind of, okay, let's try something and see which path we should kind of go towards. And then we learn some things, and then we can talk about, okay, should we scope things down a bit, instead of just talking about what is feasible or not.
Yeah, because when you are in the complex domain, you can't really understand what's going to happen when you do things. And that's why you discuss and discuss and discuss. And you say, okay, seems like we're in the complex domain. Let's try something out. That's when you need to experiment and learn and just maybe prototype, or like you say, just get them started to figure something out. And then you probably need a hypothesis. Otherwise, they don't know what to figure out.
Yeah.
Then, I'm going to start building my platform here. No, we're going to start without the platform or whatever. So you need to help them think about what problems to actually solve. So any more reflections from the guys online? No?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, good.
Yeah, we have a lot of reflections. I can bring one more to the table. What we talked about, I think this is so interesting. When we've sometimes done hackathons, I feel that, if you really put it down to like a situation, a customer with like needs and not with solutions or anything, and really put like a cross-functional way of doing it, because a lot of things I think team always miss something like product understanding, or maybe understanding of how to collaborate or took ideas or stuff. So if you really do it in a good way, like put it in a context, I believe that teams can really found out things like in a day or two that maybe takes management. Those are actually perhaps creating the the features in so extreme fast amount of time, and they're always, I mean, management is always amazed, like, how could this team do this? And that's because they have a more understanding how to create ideas if they know what problem to solve, what needs to solve for the customer. It's every time I get amazed how fast that does, but still we go to the old way that features are like created way above the team sometimes. So that's
yeah, and it's about the diamond that you have to close. You have to, you know, facilitate maybe those things, because we can't come up with the best solution, the best idea, even though it doesn't matter how high up, how smart we are, or what title or role we have to experiment and learn, and a lot of times work as a team. So yeah, it's the power of teams that's just amazing. But just like you say, a lot of times you don't think about how smart a team can be, especially if you haven't been part of one, I guess.
As you say, sorry, I talk a lot, but like if management or higher up can really define the first diamond, I think that's always the problem. Like, you're not really defining what you know, the data, the needs, and those what kind of critical situation before you start to making ideas. So a lot of times you go to ideas, then you understand it wasn't right, and then you go back to the first diamond and like try to define again. So if you can do a real good define phase in the first diamond, I think.
Yeah, that's where I find hypothesis being really valuable, because they could be data driven. These are things we know. These are just assumptions. And if you're clear on that, you know what you need to maybe explore more. And then the idea space, the solution space gets open. You could be specific with, we think it should be this solution, of course, but you can continuously try and say, okay, we've come up with 3 different ways of doing things, which teams usually are really good at, especially if they know this domain, or if they really have the right capabilities within the teams.
And that's kind of on that point. That's kind of what I lack as well. I lack someone with vision. You know, someone you can not like a charismatic leader, but someone that has a vision that others can buy into, and that can present that vision in a way that gives the teams the energy and clarity they need to know. Like, I really love the idea about a hackathon around a certain topic, and just leave to the teams to, you know, figure something out. Because my previous experience, I used to work with powertrains, is that the best kind of customer functions comes from the teams that take time to visit the customers and understand their needs. It doesn't come from projects. It comes from bottom up. So, and I really I was smiling like an idiot there halfway through when you were talking about that, presenting the vision, because I really lack that, and that's somewhere where I personally am heading towards to try to support in creating. Because now we just have, you know, PowerPoints with, you know, solution roadmap, and then release train roadmap, and other release train roadmap. And it's so uninspiring, because basically it's just a plan that no one really buys into. It's so kind of, okay, we just follow this plan and magic will happen, or what? It's so uninspiring. So I really like the idea of
a vision,
creating a vision, and then, you know, reiterating, you know, expanding the diamond on that. So
yeah, great stuff. And if you have teams coming up with ideas bottom up, then you have more product teams. That's what they're supposed to do. You know, so you have a vision, you have a, you know, direction or something, and then the teams can work on that and take on those problems and find solutions. So yeah, and you need to come up with maybe tricking the system by having hackathons or whatever. If that's not possible in day-to-day work, then you can give the space, you can, you know, help people to see the amazing stuff the teams can do, but on some real topic, a real challenge, not something made up. So thank you so much for joining in and leaning in and sharing. Really good to have you here. So I wish you all a great day moving forward. And we're going to send out the video and the presentation if you want it. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.